you too young to retire?
As young as an age, but I think in an organization you really do need to have a new energy, and so it was time.
And what do you say to young women who want to come into that position? Because there are hindrances for women.
There are challenges actually for anybody coming into the workplace, and I think we all bring our own specific journeys into the workplace, and sometimes those are positives and sometimes those are hindrances. And then when you find the obstacles, to actually tackle them positively, and then I think there's really a responsibility that I feel very strongly comes with leadership, that the higher up you are in an organization, the more it's your responsibility to make sure that people coming with you on this journey.
And how do you think businesses handle that? Because, there are very few people like you in your position who are female in corporate South Africa. I'm sure you've had these conversations with, people in business. What is your view on how this has been handled, transformation and diversity and all that?
The issue, though, in transformation is that you're transforming not just numbers, you're transforming culture. You're having to find a way to crowd in inclusivity in a manner that allows people to be their authentic them when they come to work every day. And as I was saying, that's actually quite a complicated thing to manage just from a cultural perspective, but that's actually the gold standard. That's where people are aiming for. And I think in this country, we as a country have actually done ourselves a disservice, because I think we talk about transformation in terms of scorecards and levels, as opposed to the real strength it brings to an organization.
Do you think that business is committed to investing in growth in South Africa, in changing people's lives?
In my experience, business understands completely that its success is completely bound with the success of the country. So that's a starting point. But we must accept that nobody, no individual, no business, no foreign investor, no local investor invests in a space where there's policy uncertainty, where the likelihood of the return on your long-term investment is not known. And so what we really need to do as a country is to firstly change our narrative, to recognize that, notwithstanding the fact that it is quite disappointing that we have the amount of political rhetoric we do that doesn't translate into real action on the policies that matter for inclusive growth.
And of course we hear a lot of talk from our president and whoever, but do you see that translating into reality? Because obviously our current president, when he came, there was a lot of hope in terms of reforms that will be made. A lot of business were sort of supporting him, and I'm not sure if those reforms have come through, because you talk about the issue of policy certainty. I don't know how long it takes for there to be certainty, or is it because we're not seeing enough of those changes that we need to see?
The truth of the matter is that the change is not happening fast enough for us to get the growth that we need. But it is also incredibly difficult to move an entire nation to actually get all of the policy certainty delivered as quickly as you and I would like. But I can see that in the things that they're dealing with, you take today and you say, well, today we have a national prosecuting authority led by somebody that we trust, an independent reserve bank, a business-friendly president. We've got independent judiciary tested dramatically over the last couple of years. We've got a trusted SARS leader. These are things that 3 years ago people would have said, for us to know that the country's on the right track, what would we like to see in those areas? And those are examples of things that are exactly what we would have said we wanted to see. And so we have them today. And yet growth is the elusive thing. And so what I would come back to saying is things are happening. Yes, they are happening more slowly than might we might want, but they're happening, and we need to recognize that, and we should be profiling that while we also speak truth to power on the things that still need to happen.
And you spoke about the social issues. Not so long ago you had women marching in the JSE. What do you think about that? What role do you think business should play in social issues, and should there be boundaries to the extent, in terms of the extent of the business gets involved?
So business has to be a concerned corporate citizen. In fact, I would argue that business's social license to operate is in many ways stronger than its legal license to operate. But it isn't business's role to take the role of the state. And so when people come and march, they're not marching here because they feel like marching. They're marching because they're saying our needs are not being heard, are not being addressed.
Of course, we have to talk about Steinhoff and the flag, that you receive. It's not only Steinhoff, a few companies where you've been criticized for not taking stern action.
Well, so I disagree with people who would say that we haven't acted decisively enough. In fact, you could say that post the Steinhoff debacle, we've changed listings requirements, we've applied the relevant penalties that we need to, we've referred the matters that we've investigated off to the to FISCA, which is the authority responsible for taking civil and criminal action. So we have done our part. It's one thing to do the investigations, but until people who are perceived to have been the key role players in some of these scandals are held to account, and visibly so, I think we're all going to feel that something is still missing.
One of the criticisms to business from unions would be that, it's very, because you spoke about retrenching and how difficult that was for you. But if you look at it from the point of view of labor, they would say that that seems like an easy road to take for executives instead of perhaps looking at other avenues like cutting salaries.
Clearly, the balance between executive remuneration and the way you run this business needs to be very carefully considered when you take a decision about whether or not you have to retrench. But I don't know a single executive who retrenches so that the executives' positions are secure. But the truth of the matter is that as business evolves, so your skills need to evolve. As we move into a world with more automation, so you have to recognize that brings efficiencies and the like. And so what all businesses try and do is to make sure that as you move to a world of greater efficiency, because we compete for investment, we compete as South Africa relative to the globe with regard to people using our skills. If we think our world is going to be one where we can just continue to have entry-level skills or even senior-level skills, but that are not globally competitive, both from a skills-based perspective but also from a cost perspective, if we think that is sustainable, we are sorely mistaken. No one owes us a living as corporate South Africa. Nobody owes us a living as SA Inc.